everyone, good evening and welcome to World Today. I'm Gautam Roy. On the show tonight, the latest on the situation in Sri Lanka, where the presidential office and schools have reopened today amidst tremendous hardship being faced by the island nation citizens caught in the middle of an Colombo. Well, joining us now to talk about the situation in Sri Lanka is Dr. Srimal Fernando, who's advisor in new regional diplomacy, and he's joining us from Colombo. Good evening to you, Dr. Fernando.
Thank you very much.
How do we how do we assimilate the situation in Sri Lanka right now? There is a government in place now. The president has gone to the secretariat after he reopened today. He's not moved into the official presidential residence yet, but there is a semblance of some form of governance in place now. But the crisis is so huge that it's going to take months, if not more, to address. And in the meantime, the people continue to suffer.
Yes, thank you very much. And Sri Lanka cannot continue to be on a crisis mode. And also, the new government has come in there. The new prime minister has been sworn as well as a external affairs minister. Well, the country's inflation is around at 70%. And the GDP, 50% of the GDP comes from three districts. It's from the western province, and 70% of the people live in the regions. And where that 70% depends on mainly on agriculture. So these areas have been hit, as well as the fisheries sector, where there is about 1,200 coastal line, well as 50,000 fisheries multi-day boats are there. And then all these areas are hit. The country has to put these things into normalcy. However, the oil is a major concern, where Sri Lanka needs a $650 million monthly bill to pay for oils like diesel and petrol. So the foreign reserves are not there because it has gone down, the dollars have gone down in our reserves. And the country needs to immediately get a bailout plan from either from a multilateral organization like the IMF or from a neighboring country. So the government needs immediately to deal with this thing because also about 6 million people are vulnerable and they are food insecure. They have gone into poverty level. That's about 10% of the population. And welfare procedures have to be immediately in place to give comfort whilst having efficient fuel distribution. Even today, the schools have started after many days. Where 8,000 public schools are open, about 4 million students are going for schools, and they will be facing the ordinary level and the advanced level exams in the coming months.
Right.
So, yeah, country has to gradually come into normalcy in the coming weeks with government intervention.
Okay. We're joined by Amritpal Singh as well. Amrit, you went in the day to do that report on the fishermen. You're back in Colombo now. Just tell us what is the government saying about the situation? Because even before he was elected, when he was a candidate, Ranil Wickremesinghe was saying he's making progress with the IMF. So, is there any update on that front?
Well, they're talking to the IMF. Actually, they talk at the central bank governors level. But what happened? The central bank governor remains the same. But what had happened is when Gautam resigned, and after that he became Ranil Wickremesinghe became the acting president. He obviously and had to seek a vote from the parliament. Obviously, the IMF was a little concerned whether the whatever talks are going on with the central bank, would they be able to would it have the political backing of the new dispensation, because
Right.
at that time it wasn't clear that excuse me, Gautam, whether Ranil would become the president or whether any of the other candidates would become.
We seem to be having a little trouble.
Temporary
Yes.
hold in the negotiations. But now, they are back to the negotiating table. The central bank governor says, they've got the monetary issues sorted out. Now they need to figure out the fiscal issues. The IMF, understandably, would be telling them to take austerity measures. Singh and his government has to take that whether they can impose those austerity measures on people who are already going through hardship. So he has economics on the domestic front to face. There is very high inflation. Food is out of reach for many people. the fuel is not there, and secondly, he has to negotiate with the international lenders. So he's in a very difficult spot, so to speak. But these talks are going on, and we'll only get to know once they are able to hammer out a deal.
Certainly. So this again raises the question, Dr. Fernando, of what is to be done in the interim. Clearly, some sort of a relief program is required, and that is something that the government has to work with other international organizations. There's the UNFP, which is again making statements about people being food insecure, 6.3 million. But what is being done about it?
So what I feel is the government needs $6 billion in the next 5 months. That's what the government has been requesting from the International Monetary Fund. Secondly, the country needs to put the business cycle into place, where small and medium businesses have to come into place, where about 5 million people will be benefiting if this business. Now, however, the gas has come a little bit to the market, but the petrol has to be sorted out. And the $15 billion exporting nation needs to come into normalcy, like before this whole thing was unfolding. So, but it hasn't come due to the fuel shortages. Also, not only the exports, the country needs to put its agricultural export crops as well as self-sustainable procedures into place. So, government policy intervention, there are now about 17 cabinet ministers appointed to fisheries, agriculture, and for other areas. So, those procedures have to go into place, as well as welfare packages have to come into place to bring down the inflation from 70% to 20% in the next 3 months somehow.
Right, right.
So, yeah, so that's those are some of the contingency measures that the government
Right.
can.
So, what sort of contingencies has the government put in place right now, Amrit, to deal with this situation? Amrit, can you hear me?
Yes, Gautam, I can hear you.
Just wanted to ask you what sort of contingencies has the government put in place to deal with the current situation? Because right now, all the other measures, the fiscal measures that you're talking about, the monetary measures that you're talking about, they will take time. In the interim, what is being done to take care of the people?
To ease the hardships of the people, what his government is doing is they are trying to see that there is a fair and equitable distribution of whatever is there, and food distribution, fuel distribution. He says that he's already brought in the extraordinary gazette saying the army has been authorized to take over public security in terms of maintaining public order. You see army at the petrol stations, etc. He said that he will take very strong measures against the black marketeers and hoarders, because that is a big problem. People accuse that, and it's true as well, that fuel is being sold out in the open market, in the black market, for about 5 times the price that it's available at petrol pumps. So he said that he's opened schools from today. He said that government these school buses and school vans will get fuel on priority. The president's secretariat, as was cleared, so he's trying to signal to send a signal out to people saying that the government is functional. I'm sure behind the scenes there is a talk with the opposition parties, both on the kind of economic policies that the country needs to go forward with, and he would be taking them in confidence, because given the political volatility, he needs to, even if he's got the numbers in the parliament, he
Yes.
knows that he needs to keep opposition on board. So he's taking all those measures to sort of get the ball rolling. And as you rightly say, that the situation will take time to ease out. But this is what he's trying to do in the meantime, to bring in some order to this chaos that prevails in the country.
And all this has to be done keeping in mind that even his own legitimacy has been questioned. It's under question again. There are protesters sitting just a few meters away, a couple of 100 meters away perhaps, from the presidential secretariat. So, is that also a factor, Dr. Fernando, that ought to be considered by Ranil Wickremesinghe? And how should he be acting? Because right now it seems that he's in a clampdown mode.
Definitely. I mean, he has to abide by freedom of right, freedom of assembly, and not warrant forceful security measures on these protesters. And also to bring political order into place, he has to go for election within the next 6 months. That's a general election, and that will ease off the political burden. However, to put the economic situation in order, the physical house has to be in order, and there should be a monetary plan to bring about a cushioning method with welfare policies to comfort the citizens, to bring down the inflation and so forth. Yeah.
Yes, certainly, and all that, of course, has to happen in a short span of time, Amrit, because again, it's about how long will people abide by seeing, what all is unfolding, because their patience did wear thin just a little while earlier.
That's right. He doesn't have much elbow room. He needs to, act and act fast and get situation under control, or people's anger can spill out on the streets. It's not that people are not or do not want to spill out on the streets. They want to come out on the streets, but he's using an iron hand. What is happening on the streets of Colombo is there are security forces, there is the police, there is the STF, there is the army, the trial services, the air force, the navy, and he doesn't let groups become large. So they are allowed to take out small protest marches here and there, but if the group gets large, just forced to disperse them. So he's trying to protesters. If one were to believe the protesters, they say there are many people from other parts of the country who are facing hardships and want to converge into Colombo, but they're not being allowed to board trains and move into Colombo. So he's using the strong arm tactics of the state to sort of see that the protests don't go overboard. While he is doing that on one hand, but he's also at least trying to see that tomorrow, for example, there is a meeting of the ruling coalition. They are meeting up and discussing amongst themselves as to what the roadmap for the future should be. And the day after the parliament is to convene, the opposition has given a call for the parliament to convene to discuss what happened on the night of 22nd. So all this is going on, but he really needs to act fast so that the anger of the people doesn't spill out on the roads. You saw my report that I filed from Negombo, where the fishermen said they just do not have fuel to, go out at sea, and they haven't been.
Yes,
It's been months that they've been out on sea because they do not have fuel to put in their motorboats. So that is the sort of hardships that they are facing. Now that's their bread and butter. They are poor people. They say we are eating once a day, and they do. Power cuts means they can't store ice, which is required for keeping the fish, the catch that they get to keep that fresh. So now, all these problems he needs to get over, because if he does not, the it is going to be a downward trend. Their own central bank says that the economy is going to contract by 6%. So with a minus 6% growth, if he does
right.
not get a grip on things, if bridge financing does not happen, if inflation does not come down, then Gautam, people's anger, which is already tipping the brim, could just spill over.
Certainly, certainly. And what about the factor that there is, of course, international help that has come in, a large proportion of that from India, over $3.8 billion, Dr. Fernando. What are the other quarters that he's reaching out to? India, China, of course, that balancing act is there, but what about, other nations?
Well, to be frank, other nations have not come in that way. I mean, it's only India that is really extending its neighborhood first policy credit line, which they gave a $2 billion credit line earlier and another $3.8 billion extension. I mean, India is the main neighbor as well as the closest country that can do something to bring stability, and the nation is doing that. But the new president and the prime minister has to do more. Sri Lanka's foreign ministry has more than 60 missions abroad. They have to be active, and about 10 billion dollars are 10 billion rupees are spent on these foreign missions. However, they bring out revenue about 5 billion from different ways.
Okay.
That has to be activated with the new foreign minister coming in, Honorable Ali Sabri. So that's one part. That's to reach out to Western nations as well as any other nation that is willing to help out Sri Lanka, even with oil or any other components that can ease out this small nation out of this crisis. So the External Affairs Ministry has to play a key role, more than the Finance Ministry, because it's not only the domestic issues; it has to go beyond. So to do the balancing act, India only cannot help. The other nations also, like China, is already trying to restructure the debt, but we have to reach to United States, the Western countries, the G7 countries to ease off this situation. So that needs a different roadmap on this way. Yeah.
Certainly, and there is, of course, the Sri Lankan overseas community as well. They do send in remittances, but they can also, build a bit of an atmosphere. It is direly required, and we hope that things work out soon enough. It won't happen in the immediate, but let's hope it happens in the next coming weeks or even months. Thanks a lot for joining us, Dr. Fernando and Amritpal Singh.